Hi and welcome to my little segment of this tutorial. Here I'll try to do a retrospective on the image that I've made and try to see what I have tried to showcase, what I've done and the thoughts I have put into this image, because hopefully that will be very informative to you guys. So you can see it's not about making pretty images, but it's about making a long series of right decisions. So the first thing that where we left off last time, we had this brief that we went over with you guys, and then we divided it into hope, space, and frontier. And we sort of like said, Malik take the hope because that's his forte. Jeppe take the space, and I take the frontier because it falls like more into my taste and the work that I do, and I find it more easy. So I'll just showcase quick. The final image is down here, where I say I'll be the in-betweener between Malik. He has this the city view, which is more a close-up of the environment and where people live and their everyday life. I'll take this grander overview of the whole city and the whole mega structure of the corporation. And then Jeppe, he will take this far off space, so that we each cover our little topic of the thing. But the steps I have gone through. So first off, we looked at the brief and we divided it between us, like what are we going to do, and as you can see here, like Malik did his research, Jeppe has done his research, and I have done my research. So the first thing is that I need to figure out what am I dealing with. So we know it's a desert planet, so I have a lot of desert shots here. I know I have a megastructure and a corporation, so I have some megastructure and corporations here, things that I find really, really inspiring. Amongst this, like avatar images, like really like mega excavator, like super it's almost like the real deal, but just bigger, of course. Some let me just think. I can't remember the game. Anyway, it's really inspiring, really cool, and these kind of structures as well. And then I knew that we were going to do some sort of like favela, like improvised city on the rim of this image. And then it could be cool to have this like on the top of the rim. It's let me just paint, it's easier. So on the top of this edge here, the wind blows really hard. So every structure you have on the top has to be more resilient. But as you go further down, you get more protected. These trenches, so people could live here. It's more green, it's more lush. You could even have trees and foliage down here. So that would be this super nice contrast between what's going on down here and what's going on up here. So yeah, that was the inspiration to get these very, very colorful favela pieces in here. Yeah, getting these caves in as well. So very much here in the beginning is just trying to figure out what am I dealing with, and then trying not to get carried away by collecting. I've seen people collecting way too much, many images. I just want to have a few striking, inspiring images. So this is the first step. This is like trying to inform me of everything that I don't know. So after that, I jumped into Blender, because I must admit, even though I like doing sketching in Photoshop, I really freeform think much better in 3D. So to try to, I set up this basic scene to begin with. No, sorry, that was not it. I set this one up, which is like, I had an idea, just get it down, just block it out with cylinders and boxes and a big trench, and then I just dropped it in here. We talked a little bit about it, because the other guys were also working on their stuff. Then we just drew a little bit over, like lots of scribbles. I was like, could we see it from down from the bottom of the open pit mine? Could we see it from the edge? Could we see it from the city? More inspiration, a little bit back and forth. I made these images here to say, what if I see it from the perspective of the tower? I can see the city. I can also see a bit of the landscape. So I just took out this image, just quickly painted it over in Photoshop just to try. Dropped it back in here. The other guys said they got nausea from like, whoa, this like perspective is way too funky. The camera angle is way too funky as well. So I had to sort of rethink what I was trying to say, because it's not about the advanced camera angle. It's more about like getting this very settled frontier vibe. So we looked down here, like what is a frontier, and yeah, we dropped in some Grand Canyon images that were really nice. So like, what if I just went with more classic, like traveling stick salesman-esque image, just looking over at this vista of the big corporation digging into this planet, trying to mine the unobtainium of this planet. So you can see the city, you can see the landscape. Sort of like this image here settled most of the points that I wanted to get across. So I mean, even though these were maybe more interesting in a sense, but a little bit more explorer, like out there, this one is just a safe bet at getting there. So we were discussing a lot back and forth, like, should it be like they're looking at the sunset or sun up or whatever? But I never really figured, like I couldn't really settle a good light for that. It seemed really, really flat all the time, which was annoying. So I tried to just take out the scene, do a quick line over so I knew what box things in, and then just do some quick paint overs. And this one was the one that sort of struck best, like lighting from behind, so the lighting from here, and then just have like the big clouds illuminated. I think also, like, even though this is nice, I think it went more with this. I didn't put this. Oh yeah, this one's like this kind of mood where the sky is illuminated by a setting sun in the background. So that seemed to sort of hit most of the marks. And then we had some like fidelity levels that I wanted to hit, some more inspirations down here. So even though I'm still I'm working already and things are settled, it's good to just keep on being inspired and drop stuff in that you don't know. So even though at this point I was in Blender, I still didn't know how the rock structure really looked. I didn't know. I didn't have a clear sense of like how things really looked. There was mostly just placeholders. But every step along the way here is just elaborating on what I have. So like the main tower here in the middle was the thing that Jeppe and me collaborated on. So he made the geometry node setup, and I made the design for this. And this actually was really helpful because this piece of this tower is something like this. And it could be broken into several parts, so I just reused the same here, and here. Which was really nice because this gives this coherent design sense to the whole structure, and it gives this implied sense of detail that is not necessarily there. It's the same object, basically. So as you can see here, it looks like an advanced piece of tower standing here, but it's actually basically just the same as this one, made out of several different sets. So again, still here, discussing back and forth. I'm looking at what Malik is doing over here. I'm looking at what Jeppe is doing over here. Just we had a long discussion about scale at some point also, like how big is this thing? Like how big would like an oil platform be compared to this, and how big is a massive spaceship? And I think we sort of settled this something in between, where we said, okay, it needs to read on my image, but I can scale it as I want, because I mean, let's not get carried away. So yeah, I mean, it's just basically pushing, and then in Blender, the whole scene looks like this. So this is my setup. So the whole geometry node is here, together with another set that Jeppe made, and then I took some individual parts here. This is also built a lot with the big, medium, small industrial set, which was really helpful. And then I'll see if I can drop down. I can't even remember now. Where did we had it here? Yes, I had my characters here. Like these are my little speeders where the characters sit and look into space and look at, I mean, right now they're just looking into a wall. That's pretty unoptimistic, but from this camera angle it works. So yeah, so this is my setup, and it actually runs just surprisingly smooth in Blender, even though I just pushed in so many things here, as you can see. So that was a really good process. Having this also gives me, like, getting as much as I can out here. You can see the sky is not the same at all, but pushing as much as you can in a Blender, just make sure that I don't have to paint that much in Photoshop. So a lot of this I'm now just masking and getting a lot of stuff out in masks, so that I know that, for example, the rocks, and I can just freeform paint in the background, and I know where everything is. But a lot of this are just photo textures that I started putting on top. And at this point, still, like, there was still room for changing a lot, and that's like the masking in Blender is really good, because that means that I can get these, like, I can try to experiment putting in a big moon or the big planet in the background, and it worked quite well. We also talked about, like, these speeders, they are from the city, so that it needs to be more colorful, also to stand out a little bit more clearly. So we started to do all the decals. I was thinking, like, if this was a game, could you, like, is these speeders like something you could upgrade? You could get custom decals for it, get prints and stuff like that, because in a lot of games, a lot of the in-game meta gameplay is actually about upgrading your armory and, like, weapons or skins or whatever. So that's actually also something that's quite important in this game. So again, continuing pushing, continuing discussions about values, about placement of stuff, about that I have no ability to paint fur. So that was a pretty tall order, because this one, I don't know, it looks really uncanny. So I had to figure out a way, and Malik was a hero and helped me out on that. So the final image down here should sort of contain every information. Like we have the city here in the background. Like this should be the colorful splashes. Like this where Malik, his images taking place. We have the big space elevator carrying material into space, and that's where Jeppe's image is taking place. And then I have my frontier vibe here with this guy who's actually doing the work and repairing this radar dish, and the other person just chilling, looking at the rising sun in this misty morning. We have all the mining equipment driving around down here. They are working hard. And then we have these small critters that are sort of looking at whoever these people are. So super interesting process. The biggest help here is just to talk with my fellow artists and get their input, because Malik does this, and he does this really well, to get his input on how layering and getting all the information in the right order. Jeppe is very technical, so to get his input of how to take this space elevator is actually the same as this one. It's just seen from far away. To get his technical expertise in here and optimizing Blender and make sure that the camera and the lighting works really well. So I mean, that was really a good process. Of course, after Blender, I jumped into Photoshop, and a lot of it is just painting over, getting my hands dirty. So, but most of the information was actually already settled here in 3D, so that was quite nice. As you can see here in Photoshop, this is the layering structure I have, and this is I can showcase the random pass from Blender, which is super helpful to select stuff. The mist pass, which is I think is the best pass you can actually get out. I have several different mist passes from close to camera to further away, because then it makes it easy for me to select, so you can see it actually. I think the order is like this. You have just the background, and you have a little bit closer where you can select the background, and then the midground, and then the foreground, which is super helpful. I have the normal pass, so I can select everything facing up or facing to one side, which is also super helpful. And then I have this one, which is the rich map, where I can paint in edges, which is really helpful as well. So I took it from this, which was way too colorful and sort of very explosive in its color, and then I did my overpaint, and I can just quickly showcase the way I work. It's really messy. I had this image, which I was not happy with. Then I painted out the moon. Then I painted the new moon in. I gave it a lot of mist. I started to paint out this stuff, paint out some more clouds, and I just organically work whenever I feel like I've done something that I don't want to disturb. Then I just make a new layer. At some point I'll just merge a lot of layers. I've dropped in the little favela here. So that was the 3D. That was where I thought, okay, in Blender, I cannot make something that would be easy enough to make. So I just made these as a placeholder, just to have something. And then I could easily just take an image from Google and just drop it into here. And then I have my factory. It was just to get some more light. So it was basically just getting some steam and some lights in here and some color dust layers. I did a big pass on the background, just trying to make it a little bit more painterly and suggestive in the background. Then I did the speeder. So it's basically like the normals in this one was a little bit weird. So I just did a paint over, and also got all these decals in, because they belong to the city down here. So I wanted some of this life and flair of that city to also be influenced on whatever they have. And I think also, I did it here, the capes that they have to protect against the wind. I also gave that a personal touch. And then I had the creatures, which I struggled with the most. I had this from my previous painting. I was like, it's not gonna work. So I did this, and it worked to some extent. And then I have a nice folder, which is in Danish called Råd, which is just mess, and it's just basically final touch-ups. So that's that. Then I have a tweak at the end, and then I called it done after that. So most of the things are settled here in Blender, where whatever I think, that's not gonna work. That's gonna be way too time consuming in Blender. I just know that it's a small area. I can work that over in Photoshop. So yeah, that's the path I took to arrive at this final image here. I hope that was like it had some useful tips for you guys. I think the biggest takeaway is of course like this super strength of getting Malik's input on mine and getting Jeppe's input on mine, and we could work together. I think that's like the thing I would really like to hammer home. Just get inspiration and feedback from your fellow peers, because that's really, really helpful. So thanks a lot guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.